Today's topic of conversation are books, especially books that were recommended to me by Pinterest, which is interesting because I've been book browsing, called book window shopping for so long. I was trying to find anything good to read. Obviously, there are a lot of options, but I've found another way of getting book recommendations by internet. It is using Pinterest because my Pinterest feed is basically books, furniture, outfits, and art, so it makes a lot of sense. How I picked the books, basically I just opened Pinterest and chose the first book that was showing up, and I will insert the pictures of the chosen books right here. Most of them are actually, all of them I would say, were kind of trending on internet, so it makes sense why they did end up on Pinterest, but I will still review them. Some of them I have already read previously, so that's good, but books like Pachinko and Big Squeeze I have not read before, so that was a new experience, and I think that's it basically. I'm on page 44 now. What's happening? So, let's talk about Big Squeeze. I've got the perfect weather out here. Rain. The best weather possible to talk about this book. I have rated this 3 out of 5, I think, on Goodreads. I will leave my Goodreads account below. So, the Pinterest really did trick me here because I did buy it for the cover. Now, not only for the cover, but also because of the title. So yeah, this book is about a woman called Greta. She decides to change her life completely and move to a house full of bees. That's why we see bees all over the cover. It's actually one of my favorite covers that I ever owned. The book cover, I don't know. And she gets unapologetically involved with this one's patient's life. And this patient is called Big Squeeze. Now, Big Squeeze is the name that Greta gave to Big Squeeze. She becomes kind of obsessed and very immersed into the story of Big Squeeze, and we learn a lot of details about her life. I meant Big Squeeze right now, and we are going to see where this obsession goes. And I gotta say, it was kind of predictable. So this woman, Greta, not the most likable character out there. I'm gonna say that. Not the most likable character. Greta, I don't think she's very satisfied with herself. Because after quitting her job and becoming a transcriber for the sex therapist she starts to, invade other people's privacy. I don't think she just does it because she likes, transcribing anything at this matter. I found it very uncomfortable how she memorizes all the details about people's sex lives, basically. Some moments, honestly, I'm gonna give this book that. Some moments were actually very fun. I was laughing through all the first 3 chapters. However, after that, chapter 4 hit, and
I was on the bus reading that moment, which I will talk about with the spoiler section. Chapter number 4 really broke me. I was crying in public, which is not the most common thing I would do. Wait. But I gotta say, it is very engaging. I couldn't put it down at some points, especially for the last, I would say, 300, for the last like 200 pages, which is more than the half of this book. But yeah, it was very entertaining. However, I might mention that actually, spoiler alert. No, I'm gonna say it without a spoiler. The last quarter of the book was kind of daunting to read. Like, I was getting through those pages knowing that this is important for the ending, and all of those conversations and descriptions of feelings and stuff, they are actually very important for the ending, but it was hard to get through them. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was hard. It was kind of boring at times, but most of the book is very engaging and fun. However, the ending is not my favorite. I think that we could see more lessons learned from Greta's actions, because she was a horrible person all along. I'm not saying that most people treated her nicely, but she was kind of an asshole too. She was. That's who she was. And, well, this is a spoiler section. If you want to stay here, you stay here, okay? If you don't, then skip to this time code. I didn't get the whole storyline with Keith. I didn't feel like it was that necessary. I think Keith is necessary for Flavia's story for sure, but I'm not sure why Greta was so worked up about it, because Greta is none of her business, honestly. And Keith, I don't think we should have had all the story about meeting Keith and him tried to kill Flavia's husband. It was not necessary at all. Man was just trying to be in the pub, you know, I don't know. He didn't seem to be following Flavia or doing something about her. I guess that's one of the main points, is Greta overthinking everything and being a bitch to everyone, honestly. Let's be honest, she is not the nicest person. And while I was reading this book, I wanted to punch her in the face quite a few times. Also, what's with Flavia and Greta having public? I think that it was very important and powerful to tell the story of Flavia and how she got assaulted. Now, I mean powerful in the way that, yes, this should be talked about more, and we should be able to welcome different reactions of people who went through something like that, because a lot of victims go through victim blaming and shaming. Some people in society say, oh, you're not experiencing your pain in the correct way, which is, what's up with that? It's not how it's supposed to be, you know what I mean? Flavia has all the rights to experience the pain she did in her own way and treat the situation as she did. It did bring up a lot of important topics like being queer, but actually, yeah, it did open up a lot of details about women dating women and how it's like for them and what it feels like. Yeah, and it also talks about death a lot and abuse, which are not the most flowerful and fruitful and sunny topics ever, but it was important to talk about it, and it still is and it will be important to talk about it. And I think the way that Jen put it into this book is very accessible, and people will feel engaged while also getting something very important while reading this book. So I think that just for that, those 3 stars are well deserved. However, just because it was not my preferred writing style and I did get bored at sometimes, am I thankful that Pinterest recommended this book to me? Yeah, hell yeah, because the cover is a work of art. Pinot was probably my favorite ever country.
I'm so sorry, my audio for this part of the video got lost. Here I'm just introducing. When I was reviewing Big Sweets, I didn't really have a checklist of what I wanted to talk about, and I skipped out on some things like very weird jokes. But for Pachinko, I did create a checklist. So first, I do want to say this book is kind of long. Not that long, it's just 531 pages, I think. And it was honestly a page turner, so I don't think that the length of the book is a problem. Maybe if you have severe problems with focusing, for example, it might be a problem. For me, it wasn't, and I think that for the size of this book, I read it relatively quickly, so that's good. I think I want to talk about the writing style of the book because that's the major factor why I gave it a 5-star review. Decrease its superiority in the 3rd book, because the book is structured of 3 books. Which makes a lot of sense because the 1st book is more about setting the base of where the story is going to take off, which is very nice. And the 2nd book describes much more details about the colonial period, and the 3rd book is more of a resolution of where all of it goes and where all of it can take people. For me, I feel like the 1st and 2nd books are very important, and you read through them much quickly because they are written better, I think, than the 3rd one. I feel like the 3rd one was kind of rushed at some point, and I don't understand why, but overall I think it did not ruin my perception of the book. And honestly, if you went into all of the details about the lives of characters, it could be even more daunting to read. So I'm glad that it's not 1,000 pages, because let's be honest, it would not be necessary. But now I think I wouldn't say that any of the characters were unnecessary. I would say though that some chapters, for example, of Haruki's wife, I don't know if I needed to read that. I mean, it does show kind of the frustration that she was going through, which is important to talk about, but I'm not sure if it's suitable for this book
specifically. That's the only chapter that stuck out to me as maybe unnecessary, which is honestly great because in the Big Swiss, a lot of chapters and a lot of moments were highly unnecessary. I think that this book is very important for both Japan and Korea and everyone in the world who wants to learn more about it, because it does give much more perspective and talks about how women and men and the Koreans were treated in Japan during that period of time, and it was not easy, especially what was kind of very triggering for me because I'm an immigrant myself, you know, even though I was not born in the country I migrated to, obviously, but I still feel more connected to it than the place I was born in, you know, where my roots are from, kind of. And I felt very similar to Noah, and it's sad. Also, what was very hard to read, the stories of girls and how the girls were fetched to sexual labor. I hope that a lot of people read this book and they understand how horrible that period was. About the writing style, I just wanted to add that while I was reading this, I could clearly picture a TV series in my head. Like, it's written in such a way that you can picture everything and just in the right setting, you know what I mean? And then I googled if this will be adapted to TV series or a movie, and turns out it already did for Apple TV, I suppose. So I will be getting my hands on it later. I really want to watch it and see if if the scenes in my head were similar at all. This book is about a woman. She's the central character, I would say, even though this book follows throughout generations. Sunja, she is a teenage girl, and we also meet her parents at the start of the book and get the whole story of her. Sunja, however, gets pregnant when she is 16, and she gets pregnant because of a much older man. And he's sus, let me tell you that. He's kind of suspicious, because when you read through this book, you're like, I do not feel good about it at all, and you shouldn't. If you do, you have problems. We basically read her navigating her life and her children. Actually, it's not a spoiler, it's literally on the cover of the book. She has 2 kids, it's 2 boys. We basically follow their life in colonial Japan and how their lives turn out, you know, their jobs and pachinko. If you don't know what pachinko is, it's basically like a machine similar to casino, but not really. The name of the book makes a lot of sense because everything goes back to pachinko. I will just talk like a spoiler section about Noah, because Noah was my favorite character. Now, if you read the book, just tell me, do you resonate with me? Because I felt so bad for him when his college uni girlfriend treated him like that. Just to be like, I'm not like any other Japanese. I actually I date a Korean. I'm not like any other Japanese. I'm an anarchist.
girl, no. And I felt so bad for him when he had to hide his identity and to pretend to be Japanese just to get a job, live a life. I left this book with a lot of understanding and about the period of time in Japan and Korea, and about people and about men. Once again, I've realized that I hate men. Except for Noah, because Noah, he was a good guy. I think that's it basically for Pachinko. A very good book, recommended. I'm glad that Pinterest recommended me this book. Yes, the cover is stunning. Look at this. And the contents of the book, amazing. So 5 out of 5 stars. Let me tell you about the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. Now I only have the third one on my hands. I love this series dearly, and I think that they're written in a very nice and accessible way. However, I do have favorites. My favorite book of the series is probably the first one, because it sets where all the other books are going to go. The second one was a bit less exciting to read, I guess. I have to say that I really like the writing. I believe that the ending of the third book was perfect, pretty much. I don't see why we would need the fourth book, because I much more prefer it ending on the third book. Also, the second book was kind of unnecessary in my opinion. I think that you could make this one a little longer, or like divide the second book into the first and third book, and then they would come in the 2-book duology. Even though we're talking about like 4 books here, this section is probably going to be shorter. I've gotta say that my favorite character is the father of the girl. Gotta pull out the character map. Nagare. Yes, Nagare. I feel like he's a good father. Leaving his daughter behind, he's a good father. I think that the stories that are being told are very emotional, and they make me emotional. I think that the books are the only things that can make me cry, probably. Oh no, I watched The Young Royals recently, and that made me cry. So the books are basically about this cafe that you can go there and you can travel in time, either go in the past or in the future. But there are certain rules. For example, you cannot change the future, and you have to get out from the past or the future before your coffee gets cold. And honestly, these books kind of contributed to my coffee addiction. I feel like I started to romanticize my experience with coffee much more. Thank you. I don't know if it has ruined my life or made it better. And then I wonder why I'm anxious. I also started dreaming about opening my own little coffee shop. When I grew up, when I was reading the first book, I just fell in love with the descriptions of like making coffee. So these guys I've been reading at my most emotional, broken stages, and it healed me, which I'm thankful for. The covers are very pretty too. It's emotional. It might make you cry. Made me cry. Especially the story about sisters, because I have a sister, and yeah. You will read about magical realism. It's pretty much not that much. of magic going on. It's just the traveling in time period. You're going to be thankful for all of your freaking human connections. Honestly, this book has taught me a lot about human connections and how glad I actually am that I met all the people in my life that I did, and that I've learned a lesson from every relationship. I mean, like friendship or whatever, you understand, that's been in my life. And it also teaches you a lot about grief and about anger that you might be holding towards people who you actually love a lot, or anger that you have to let go because it's hurting you more than it should be, basically. So I think just for your emotional state of mind, this is a very good book series, and don't take it like too seriously. You know what I mean? I think this problem with reading in general, a lot of people go on their little books and start being like so critical about everything. Books are just a way for people telling stories. You tell stories to your friends, but you're not like, I have been mesmerized by the way whatever. You don't talk like that, you know. Those stories are just something that makes you move emotionally, and it's not supposed to be like, I'm a reader, I read books, you know. Who needs that? Reading is for you, okay, girly? Boyly? Do is read what you like and enjoy. It's my 9th day of reading The Secret History, and I'm secretly turning into donut. The Dark Academia Anthem, if it were a song. The Secret History by Don Tart. I don't know, I just feel much more classy now that I finished this. This is an amazing piece of work. I feel like reading this book, it's basically, it makes you so immersed in it that you don't have anything to say when you finish it. You're just like, oh, I love it. Why? I just love it, you know? Well, first of all, I believe that this book was written based off of a real true crime, and that's amazing because we love a true crime queen. I've made a lot of underlining here, a lot. Even just open any page and it's heavily underlined. Dark Academia is a very exclusive and not inclusive aesthetic wherever, but however, this book, I think whoever reads it is gonna feel like me right now. I just had to dress like this to talk about this book. It makes perfect sense. Actually, should I put something on this to make it even more donut tartish? I said I'm turning. I haven't said I've turned into donut tart. I don't even know what I can say about this book. Like, everything could be spoiled. So basically, this book is about a group of college students, and they're very elite, kind of. They lose their senses. They lose any sense of morality. All of their actions are highly questionable, but that is kind of the point of the book. I think the writing in this book might be somewhat heavy. For example, if you're just getting into reading, for example, or you're getting out of a reading slump, I don't know if this would be the best book to start with in this case, but otherwise, this is an amazing book. I think it's gonna be just a very short review because I cannot say anything about it except for it's a 5-star, you should read it, and there is no time limit on reading, you know. Sometimes I read books that are 200 pages for a week, Sometimes I read a book like this in, I don't know, a few days, maybe 1-2 days, when I'm too immersed in the book. And this book, it does get you very immersed in the story. There's a lot of conversation about class, about losing your senses, about classicism. So I think it's nice just to read it from the outside of the world. And that's pretty much it. And don't be scared of this becoming your whole personality for maybe a week, a month, a year. It's a good change. I sound like I'm trying to get you into like a cult worshipping this book. Maybe I am, for all you know. Maybe I am. I think that after reading the 7 books that were recommended, pretty much, I think I'm happy with most of them, except for Big Swiss maybe, because it was more of a disappointment than the other one. Even though some of the Before the Coffee Gets Cold books seemed less significant than others, I still say that it's a very solid series to read. When Big Swiss is more controversial, I would say. Especially its random jokes about Asian people. Like, I don't know, it was kind of concerning at some point. I believe that the topics that were supposed to be discussed in this book are important, however, doing them in another way, maybe. Everything is subjective. I think overall, you can find good recommendations on Pinterest. However, it's literally the same as any other media. So you could find the same pictures or recommendations on TikTok, on Instagram, Twitter, I think, X. Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, some books that are trending on the internet are not necessarily the best in any way. For example, we should not forget that literally Colleen Hoover, of all people, was trending on Book Talk, I think. That was the worst recommendation I've ever got off of internet. So before buying something because you're influenced by media, sit back, say whoa, and just make sure you're actually interested in the book that you're going to buy right now. And that relates to clothing, accessories, whatever other stuff that we find on the internet. And I recommend going to a public library if you have one, if it's accessible to you. Going there and browsing for books is much more, I would say, it's more time consuming, but you can find a lot more different stuff that you would not expect to find. For example, I have found this fun book called My Cat Yugoslavia, and I don't think I've seen it anywhere online. Like, I've googled and no one really talks about it. However, it opens up a lot about the culture in Kosovo and Albanian culture and weddings and gender roles and relationships between men and women, immigration and stuff like that. Is it, I don't know, my favorite book in the universe that I've thankfully found because of a public library? No, but it's a new experience. And on the internet, we see thousands of videos about same books that people film while trying to stay relevant, and I don't know if it's healthy. But overall, it was a good experience.